Hello, welcome back. Christopher Taylor with Sovereign Harmony. Good to see you again. Got a new scenery behind me than my last couple of videos. I've recently left my place where I was paying rent. I travel most of the time, so it made sense for me to just kind of travel around even more when I'm off. So I'm staying at various Airbnbs around the San Diego area, Carlsbad area when I can, if I'm in town, which I am now, and I haven't been for a while. But anyway, it's a nice day here in Carlsbad, California, and we're in the middle of the summer here all of a sudden, right? I think the last time I spoke with you guys was May 14th, I think mid-May. Before that was early March. So, every couple of months I'm kind of checking in here, and I wanted to kind of go over where we're at. My last video in May, I talked about the summer with Mars Retrograde, Uranus in Taurus, and this whole idea of aligning with appropriate action for the long term. And it's interesting because back 2 videos ago in March, I talked about, it was actually I think the day after Jupiter went retrograde in Scorpio, and I talked a little bit about that. But Jupiter just recently, a couple of days ago, went direct. So today is Wednesday, July 11th, 2018, and I think Jupiter went direct yesterday, actually on July 10th, Tuesday. So yeah, it did actually yesterday late morning Pacific time. Now it's coming back to me. So Jupiter's now direct. It's a little slow. It's going to take a little bit to get forward momentum going, but I want to talk about how this all relates to where we're at here now in the summer with, Mars retrograde as we speak. It went retrograde on June 26th, and so here on July 11th, we're a couple weeks in to Mars retrograde. We've got several weeks left. It'll be in retrograde till August 27th. Okay. We also have Mercury retrograde coming up, and we're already in the shadow of Mercury retrograde here, but the actual retrograde of Mercury in Leo is going to occur from July 26th through about August 19th. So that'll be a few weeks there when both Mars and Mercury will be retrograde. And lo and behold, what do we have on the horizon starting tomorrow is we have a few eclipses coming up. So usually there's 2 eclipses back to back, a solar and a lunar. Okay, and they happen a couple times a year. This time, there's 2 solar eclipses that will happen a month apart that are partial. They're kind of not quite exact. They both kind of fall into the definition of an eclipse. But with a lunar eclipse right in the middle of those 2, that's going to be pretty much as exact as it gets. A total lunar eclipse. It'd be visible, I think, mostly in the eastern part of the world, not so much the western part of the world, because it will happen at night there. Anyway. But we have basically 3 eclipses coming up, and the first one is tomorrow. Tomorrow will be actually tomorrow night, early Friday morning, so more like July 13th will be this first eclipse in Cancer, 20 degrees Cancer. We'll talk about that, and then we'll have a lunar eclipse on July 27th, I believe, and that's going to be right in the sign of Aquarius, right on Mars retrograde. So really intense there. So it's going to be a very significant total lunar eclipse there in late July. We'll talk more about that later. And then we'll have the August 11th solar eclipse, similar to the one we're having this week, but in Leo instead of Cancer. Okay, and that's going to happen about a week before Mercury goes direct, and a couple of weeks before Mars goes direct. So it's kind of a window, if you want to think of it like that. We're crossing a threshold in a way, and please forgive me for the construction noises over here. They're building some new homes, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, you can hear me through it, I hope. And but I want to talk about how all this works together for the summer, and how things are kind of culminating here through this window that's being created by the eclipses, and then planets going direct, Mercury and Mars, at the end of August. So it's kind of like this whole summer of prep for a push forward, a big flood forward in the fall. So I just want to kind of quickly review then what we talked about in the last couple of videos. In that video in March, I talked about Jupiter going retrograde, and then we were talking about the Mercury retrograde at that time in Aries. And that Mercury retrograde had a lot to do with making sure we concentrate our energies on what serves us, and not getting caught up in what other people want from us and that kind of thing. And so that's hopefully served us well till now. Because this current Mercury retrograde in Leo is all about getting our message across, okay? And I'll get back to that in a minute. But going back to that March video, Jupiter retrograde in Scorpio, I talked about how the period from October 2017 right up until March or so, the shadow side of ourselves and of the world has been coming up. We had the Weinstein scandal come up within days of Jupiter entering Scorpio, and that's the exact kind of thing you expect to see. But on a personal level, lots of our own inner demons to deal with, and things we thought were gone that are still here, and all that good stuff. So we've been expanding in our awareness of the dark side and what still needs to be integrated. Okay, and so since March then, when Jupiter went retrograde, right up until this week, when it's now direct here, as of yesterday, it's been a period of a few months where we have been kind of sifting through what came up between October and March. So taking a break from taking on any new things, just trying to concentrate on what has come into our awareness, okay? And so now that we're complete with that process, it's time to move forward. So for this period from now right on through the fall, with Jupiter, it's going to get faster and faster through Scorpio until it enters Sagittarius here in November, I believe. But it's really just an accelerated period of expanding through the darkness and integrating that darkness that comes. And you know, we're going to be old pros at this now, because we've had this sort of warm up from October to March, and then we've been able to integrate and take a little break in a certain sense here in the last few months, and now we're ready to bowl forward and, you know, face what needs to be faced and process it properly, and that kind of thing, so that we can grow forward. When Jupiter enters Sagittarius in November, it'll be a year or so of you know, some times that we'll be happy that we had this Jupiter in Scorpio to get to process and to release what needs to go, so that we can kind of take off in new directions, and exciting new directions in some cases. So it's all been for a purpose. Okay, so with Jupiter direct now, just expect, you know, it's going to take a little bit for it to pick up speed. So I suspect for the rest of the summer, right up until the end of August, it's going to be a little bit slow going. But you know, that once everything else wraps up, which we'll talk about here, we'll see how everything's kind of setting up for September, October, kind of a zoom period after a summer of a stall in a sense, but a helpful stall in a lot of ways, because right now, like we said, we have Mars retrograde, and we've got several more weeks left. It's, you know, started June 26th, ends August 27th, and this is a Mars retrograde that has a lot to do with trial and error. It's squaring Uranus a few times here, and then in these several months that it's retrograde, and that's Uranus and Taurus. And so it's trial and error with new forms of how we take action in the world, how we, you know, house or form what is the essence that we offer. And so it's just playing with different options and not really committing to anything too hard and fast at this time, okay? And we'll find that will change as we get to the fall, as we start really diving towards directions that we now know work, okay? But this is the time to play with different options. Try this out, then try that out. You know, give this a whirl, but don't be too attached. And that's I think that's the biggest theme for this Mars retrograde, which is mostly in Aquarius, is don't become too attached to any methods right now. And so, like, for example, if, you know, getting the word out via a certain medium, like I'm doing, you know, YouTubes right now, maybe that method is not the most appropriate method, and maybe some other methods come to me as far as what can work. So being able to detach and release anything that's not necessary. I'm not saying that I'm getting rid of YouTube, but just saying that's an example. Now, once Mars backs all the way into Capricorn and heads forward here in late August through September, October, it's kind of where we're now concentrating our energies again on a focus. So we've kind of figured out what works and what doesn't work, and we're going to go with what works. Okay, and these eclipses are going to be very important with regards to Mars, especially that lunar eclipse on July 27th, just a couple of weeks from now. That's going to be really potent and powerful. We probably won't see the effects of it till the fall. That's when Mars will actually be moving direct right at that degree where the eclipse is happening. It'll be late September. That's when we're going to really see the effects of that eclipse. But I want to get to that. I want to do things in order here. So, mentioned Mars retrograde. Now let's talk about Mercury retrograde coming up. So this Mercury retrograde, like I said, similar to the Mercury retrograde in March. That one was in a fire sign, Aries. This one's in Leo, another fire sign. That one was concentrating on, focusing on what fulfills us, and trying to remove distractions. And this one is really concentrating on getting that message out. And Mercury retrograde this time around hasn't started yet. It won't be till the 26th of this month. So the day before this lunar eclipse that lands right on Mars retrograde, Mercury goes retrograde. Okay, so that's going to be a really potent time here in a couple of weeks, late July. And Mercury is going to form a square to Jupiter a few times throughout the couple of months that it's retrograde, and that's Jupiter in Scorpio. We just talked about it. Just turned direct here. And so this Mercury squaring a now direct Jupiter in Scorpio, this Mercury having to do with getting our message out and expressing and clearly communicating. In some cases there can be some ego there as well, and some pride with attachment to what our message is, for example. And it's interesting that we have this idea of attachment with Mercury retrograde, and we have this idea of detachment with the Mars retrograde. And so we're kind of detaching from methods, and we're actually trying to attach to the actual essence of the words that we're, the message that we're trying to get across. So we're really committing to the message and being more open to the method of getting the message out. That's probably the best way to look at what's happening now. And this current time is helping us to rearrange that. There are things that maybe aren't working out that we want to work out differently than they are. These are all opportunities. These are all chances the universe are basically sending to us to say, okay, that's not the right direction to go, so try something else. And as long as we listen to that, we don't get frustrated, because Mars retrograde can be a very frustrating period. And throw Mercury retrograde on top of that, and you can have ultra frustration. But just be patient, because it will all unwind itself here. And these eclipses, the whole purpose of them is to be that sort of window. So we're kind of transitioning. Okay, it's like I always think of the eclipses as railroad tracks. When you see the railroad, a branch of the railroad open up, and so you could stay on this railroad, or you can go onto the other one. And the eclipses are always those sections of the railroad where you can go in one direction or another. And once you're on a railroad, it's not like a bicycle or something where you have more flexibility. You can get off the road or whatever. You're on the railroad. You're on the rails. That's all you have. And so you really have to make good decisions about which rails you're going to now follow, right? And that's what eclipses are always about. And so whenever we get these patches of eclipses, there's sort of one rail ending, another rail beginning, and we have to be careful what we choose. And with the retrogrades going on, it's going to slow things down a bit and allow for a more intelligent choice. And again, as long as we are staying true to the Mars retrograde message, which is detaching from the methods and trying things out, and trying things out in the ways that are unique to us, even if they're not familiar to us. And then staying true to the Mercury retrograde, which is sharing our message, sharing it, and really owning it. And that's kind of the key word there, owning that message, owning it as your truth. And with that square to Jupiter and Scorpio now direct, there's a big expansion in terms of truth. Scorpio is all about the hidden truths, right? And Jupiter expanding those hidden truths. Well, now we have this sort of energy of exuberant sharing of what is being unearthed or released. Okay, and on a global scale, who knows what this is going to look like? Who knows what kind of information is coming out on the horizon here in the next few months? Because that's the energy of this. And then, on a personal level, this is more about just staying true to our message, and understanding that there is darkness and light together, and not being tempted to discard one for the other. Okay, on a collective level, this could be a lot of information release. It's that kind of energy. So, I don't know. Watch out for the next couple of months. Don't immediately assume something is fake news or conspiracy. There could be some truth to some things that are coming out here in the near future. So just be vigilant, be aware of that. Okay, and these eclipses are perfect for that kind of energy as well. Okay, so this first eclipse coming up this week in a couple days, we're hours away from it basically. This is that one at about 20 degrees Cancer. And this is directly opposing Pluto in Capricorn at 20 degrees. So very, very potent release energy, okay, with this eclipse. And don't expect things to happen immediately. With these eclipses, there's usually a little bit of delay, and it looks like that delay is going to be around September, October time frame is when the energy of these eclipses is going to unfold. And it makes sense because that's when Mars and Mercury will be full forward, full bore direct, and Jupiter will be full bore in direct motion. So all these planets that are kind of convening and slowing and changing direction right now, well, they'll all be in fast forward motion, and that's when the energy, this window that's opening up with these eclipses will actually come forth. Okay, so when I talk about these eclipses, just remember that. So this first one on Friday here, the 13th of July, it's going to directly oppose Pluto, and this is potent for release, potent for essentially rocking the stability of what is comfortable, but not necessarily in a bad way, because it's basically what needs to be done to make room for what's coming, which is better. Okay, so anything we've tried to hang on to that just has outlived itself has no chance through this eclipse energy, which again goes right on through the fall. It has no chance. If it doesn't serve us, it has no chance. And that's a good thing. Not for our egos that like familiarity and like people in our lives that we think we need to have around, or living situations like my living situation. I don't know what this is. I'm just floating around like a madman across the country all the time. But it's kind of fun too. So, where is that going to lead? And, but other people, are attached to a certain job description, maybe there's a new type of work on the horizon that is totally different, but more in line. And there could be some fears about money or other things that could go along with that. But the idea is anything that does not serve us will be eclipsed out of our lives here in the next few months. That's represented by this week's solar eclipse, okay, with that opposition to Pluto. Very powerful, very potentially frightening if we're too much in our egos, but very good for our soul intentions. And the more we get in touch with that meditation, whatever we're going to do, the easier this becomes. It doesn't have to be a struggle. Okay, the eclipse coming up on the 27th, again the day after Mercury goes retrograde in Leo, we're going to have this lunar eclipse, total lunar eclipse, exactly conjunct Mars, pretty much within a degree of Mars in Aquarius. And so going back to this idea of that detachment, like maybe there's some ways, some methods we never really thought of, that suddenly come into our awareness. Okay, that's finally, that eureka moment of like, this is my method of connection to others. This is my method of sharing. This is my method. Okay, and so this eureka moment may not happen on, July 27th on the day of that eclipse. Again, it's more likely to happen around late September, early October, and that's when again Mars will return to that point. Okay, because Mars is going to be right on that eclipse, but it's retrograde, so it's going to be back. But when it comes back to that point at about 4 degrees Aquarius, boom, and that's like September 28th, I believe. So plus or minus at that date, write that one down, because that will be when the energy of this late July total lunar eclipse really comes forth. And at that time, Mars will be again fully in full speed direct, Mercury in full speed direct, and Jupiter accelerating in its last several weeks of Scorpio at that point. So it's truth out. It's doing right action. It's getting to work. It's really accelerated motion forward at that point. And this eclipse is going to really be about that. Okay, but we can only accelerate that forward with the help of the eclipse that's happening this week, which is that big release. So it's going to kind of release the chains in a way, so that we can really move forward as we come into the fall. Okay, and in the final eclipse, August 11th, that will be a solar eclipse in Leo at about 18 degrees Leo. That's going to be squaring Jupiter and Scorpio. Okay, and so it's right in line with these same themes, and that's where we're really just expanding, getting excited, and it's a lot to do with this Mercury retrograde energy. Again, Mercury will go direct about a week after this eclipse. Okay, and this is all about that, staying true to our message, and exuberantly sharing the truth no matter what, and being okay with what comes up and sharing it anyway. Okay, and it's that kind of owning it that's associated with this. So by the time we get to the fall, we should be in a position where some of the chains have been cut. We have a real sense of direction and in focus, and there's excitement as well. So it's kind of like this focus, excitement, and liberation That's really the theme of this whole Mercury, Mars retrograde, Jupiter, Scorpio, and these eclipses right now. And so where we're at now versus where we're going to be in a couple of, let's say 2 to 3 months. Oh wow, it is only 2 to 3 months right now. So it's, mid-July. So like, say mid-September to mid-October is going to be a pretty potent time. So so 2 to 3 months from now, you see the combination of liberation, focus, drive, and excitement. So sounds good, right? So but the more that we can concentrate on where we're at now in this process, the better. And where we're at now is, trial and error, staying detached from the method, and getting excited about our message, getting excited about what we want to share, and being okay with the truth that comes out with that, and being willing to release what needs to be released, because it's going to be anyway. So the more we can be in agreement with that, the better. Okay, so that's all I have. So hope that kind of gives you a sense of where we're at now, here about mid-July, and where we're going to be the rest of the summer, and as we head into the fall. So I'm not sure when I'll be back next, but probably in September or so, after this everything has kind of gone direct and everything. We'll see where we're at, see how things are moving forward at that point. Anyway, if you have any questions, let me know. If you have any comments, put them below. Thanks for watching. Please share if you think someone else could get something out of this. Again, my name is Christopher Taylor, Sovereign Harmony, and we will see you next time. Thanks a lot. Bye.